Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. On today's video, we are going to be revisiting the Heimdallr Monster. Now, Heimdallr released this watch on the back end of 2020, and I'd say possibly it was Heimdallr's most anticipated watches they've released to date. They did announce that earlier on in the year, but due to obviously COVID-19 and possibly other hitches, they were quite delayed. But when it did drop, boy, was it well received. You know, it's something which they really did smash it out the park the way they done it. And, you know, not only on due to the watch they homaged, it was a game changer for me because of just the build quality. Now, I done the unboxing on the orange one. Heimdallr were kind enough to send me one in for review, which I could keep, and then also did a full review and then a comparison with a Gen 1. Now, just on build quality alone, I think they've stepped up to another level here, because I was very, very impressed in how well they homaged it. The build quality was immaculate. I really, really did enjoy the watch. You know, I've still kept it. So what I have in front of me today is, left to right, I've got a Seiko Gen 2, which I recently purchased. We'll talk a little bit about that. I've got the black dial Monster homage. I've got my own orange Monster homage, and I've got the red dial. Now, I really liked the different colors that they come out with straight away. Heimdallr gave a lot of choice, and almost, I'd say instantly, or a couple of weeks after, they brought out the other variants, the PVD version as well. So they're very quick on releasing all the different alternatives and variants they've got. And I gotta say, I'm surprised that no one has done this before, because, you know, they look at iconic watches when they've homaged them, like the SKX, for example, the Turtle, the Tuna. Everyone's done those, but no one's really touched the Monster. I'd say it's because it's not, I wouldn't say complex, but yeah, there is a lot to it, which is going back to the build quality. In the comparison versus the Gen 1, I think they done everything so well, just from a manufacturing perspective and what their capability is now. I think they really have stepped up. That's something that I'd like to see going forward on all the other models. So why have I bought this? You know what? I'm a Seiko collector. So I think anyone who collects watches, Seikos especially, you do need one of these in your collection. Now, if you're fortunate enough to buy this, you know, a few years back, it would not cost you a lot. Current day price, second hand on, let's just say, eBay, you're looking between £500 to £800, and God forbid if it's a Japanese version, then you're going to pay towards the top end of that, if not more. It is getting ridiculous. Of course, it's driven by people. It's driven by just this false, I don't know, demand, because it's not like they're in shortage. I think the Gen 2 they only had a short run. That's why they demand quite a lot more. The Gen 1s, you can get them now for around 200 to 300 depending on condition. So I mean, I never paid nowhere near that, but even what I did pay was far too much for it. Seiko originally released these, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was around £300 mark, and I was seeing this up to about 2 years ago, you know, very reasonably priced. But I was always skeptical because of the size. On paper, this looks quite big, or it seems quite large. But if you do want to look at the review for, I do have a review for a Gen 1. I've got the review for the Heimdallr. I'll link them in the description. I've also got the review for the comparison, which you can also see. It is what it is. I think if you really like this watch, you're going to pay no matter what. And they do so many limited editions, so many versions. A bit hit and miss. I don't like them all, but some of them are just fantastic. So anyway, that's the Gen 2. Just picked it up, I'd say, a week ago. Pretty good condition. And yeah, I'm not happy with what I paid for it, but you know, I've got to have it in my collection. But I'm also comparing this to this line here. You know what? You've got the same specs with the added bonus of sapphire crystal, because this has come with a 4R movement, and they've got the NH36, and the build quality, going back to it, it is super. Just have a look at that. Now, I highlighted key differences on my comparison with the Gen 1. There's not much difference between Gen 1 and Gen 2 apart from the actual dial. In terms of case finish, bracelet, more or less the same. But just look how well they've managed to do that. Striking differences that you'll see straight away, of course, is the colored lume, but the brushing, the bezel, the painting, the details, very, very good. So the Heimdallr did have a couple of complaints as well. It had the lume pip being the main one, the actual main one, protrudes a bit too much slightly. If they do an upgrade, they should definitely look on that. I have read on some forums, there's a little hack going around where if you just take off that lube and apply some luminous paint, clean it off, that should give you a flat and level pip. Now let's show you the red. This was a very popular color option. In fact, it sold out so quick. And then I originally wanted one of these, but I couldn't get one. But I'm happy I went with orange. You know, it's the more prominent color in the Monster. Is easily the more recognizable one. And this is obviously Heimdallr's own twist on it. I really do like it. You've got this gradiented black and red dial, crisp, clear printing, Monster style hands. I'd say for me, the chapter ring is probably a bit too light. I would have liked that grading to carry on onto the chapter ring, effectively becoming a much darker, if not black, chapter ring. That would have been quite nice to look at. But it's a welcome change. It is, you know, a fresh look at Monsters. This surely become, if Seiko did one, they'd make it a limited edition, no doubt, and sell it for £2,500. And then we've got the one in black. Very nice. More toned down, of course, but still equally as nice. So yeah, it was a big hit for Heimdallr, and I wish, you know, they carry this on with different models. They should really continue with this, which I think they have with the PVD models and what's available there. But I think they should look at some limited editions, figure out what's the most popular one, and start really going after them, and possibly looking at the Gen 3 dial, because there are a lot of fans of the Gen 1 and Gen 3 dials. Quite a few people don't actually like this shark tooth or Monster style dial, but I really do. Fantastic pieces. So if you didn't see the review on the comparison, let's see if I can just run through the differences pretty quickly. I might miss something, but I'm just going to be really quick about it. So obviously, the first and foremost, the visual, the dial, the indices are pretty much similar. I think just that polished outline that you got on the teeth, on the fangs, is slightly darker than the actual Gen 1. The printing, equally as good as the original, very crisp, clear. And you find that also on the Heimdallr. Now, there's a difference. Another difference on the dial is you see how flush that chapter ring sits. This one's just slightly thicker, slightly more pronounced, and you do see it quite a bit more. But, you know, it's not a major at all. We already mentioned the different color lume. The bezel, I think the bezels are done really well. I mean, I can't see any difference. There might be, I think the font on here is just a touch bigger, just a touch. Of course, it's not going to be exactly the same, but the quality of it, perfect. Another thing on the dial, which one subscriber picked out, very eagle-eyed subscriber, just look at the minute hand on this. Notice how broad it is, so like a sword minute hand, and how far down it extends closer to the center. Now this one is just a bit thinner. Let me change watch so you can see it a bit clearer. Yeah, now this is what you'll find, this hand you found on the Seiko 5, nicknamed the Baby Monster. So that's another difference. Crown, there is a very slight difference. The Seiko does have much tighter knurling. You can see here, just to get some focus. There we go. And the Heimdallr, still, you know what, it's been done really well. There's loads of grip on this, but it's just slightly different in shape. Away from the dial, there's two things which stand out for me on what Heimdallr have done. Is they've made the case so perfect, in line with the Gen 2, Gen 1 as well. The only difference is they've made the bottom half of the case, these, you know, in gouges here, just slightly smaller, and they don't truly line up, because they won't line up because obviously the shape's different. But as you can see here, surprisingly, it does line up on the Seiko. They go through so many different changes in finish. So, you know, you've got circular brushing. It goes across these highlighted, polished edges, as you can see here. And then on these lines, there's linear brushing. You've got polishing through the center of the grips. Then you've got straight brushing again, and look at all the different angles that you can see, all those facets on the case with really sharp, clear lines, the directional brushing, the polish to the center. There's a lot of work gone into this case. Now, for them to be able to produce it and sell it for, you know what, around £120, a lot of people got them for around 100. Some paid more, some paid less, depending on where you got it from. It does reset you what you know, like how much do watches cost really? Then that's my question, because if you can do all this to that level for around £100, £120, I think we need to go back and look at what we know about watches. The only one difference between these two now is, aside from the small niggles that I mentioned, is brand value. Of course, Seiko, they hold the value, whereas Heimdallr doesn't hold the same value. So other than that, very well done. Of course, it goes without saying, the Heimdallr would not exist without Seiko, so credit goes there. But just looking at it objectively, watch to watch, it's very difficult. Bracelet, now that was the second thing. So the second thing which they've done so well, that bracelet is just perfect. I have a problem with the bracelets from AliExpress, or the brands that sell on there. So let's take a good bracelet. So we all agree San Martin do have probably one of the most nicer bracelets, but I still feel a edginess to the bracelet. No matter how well it's been finished, how good the clasp is, I feel it's not sharp, it's not uncomfortable, but there's a edginess present, which I think they could do with this one final, I don't know, buffing or something. But with the Heimdallr, now I've got the bracelet in hand here with the Gen. Amazing. The brushing, very fine. Polishing, half H links. But there's no sharpness. It literally, if I put a blindfold on and I felt both bracelets, I would not be able to tell the difference. The Lume is fantastic on these monsters. It's generally fantastic on all Heimdallr models. And you can see the Seiko on the left with this proprietary Lume Bright technology. And the C3 Super Luminova used by Heimdallr will keep up with the Seiko. I think the Seiko just outlasts it in the final minutes. But having said that, it's still very, very bright, and it picks up Lume amazingly well. Now, what I do like, in the rare occasion that I do have multiple versions of the same watch, I like to check for consistency. And the only thing we can really do functionally is look at the bezels. So let's start off with the actual Seiko. So shockingly, it lines up perfectly well. If we just move on to click, maybe it's a fake messing, but it does have a bit of backplay, just a touch, like half a click. But I don't really mind that as long as the bezel rotation works fine. Seiko's, in my experience, bezels are so inconsistent, very, very inconsistent. You either get a good one, you get a loose one, you get an overly tight one, and then you get one that's just right, which is quite rare to get. This one's not far off just right. I do like these smoother clicks. I like the bezels to be quite smooth in rotation. I'm not really much of a fan of those really high clicking bezels. But, as long as they're accurate and they work good. So let's have a look at the red one. You can hear much more positive clicks. It does have quite a tight feel. Check for alignment. Same. And just that touch bit of backplay, similar to that on the Seiko. Go across that one. Spot on. This one has slightly less backplay. The thing is with bezels, the more you rotate them, they will sort of break in over time. You can tell these are just new bezels, they need some wearing in. So that's it for the review. Let me know in the comment section if you would like Heimdallr to look at the limited edition monsters, and if there's anyone in particular. I personally would love to see a Frost dial, which they have got on their 6.2 mass, which I think is probably on the wrong watch, but that dial is amazing. Let me put a picture up just before I go. Just look at that dial on the Heimdallr I've been able to create. That's a very, very nice looking dial. So as always, thank you everyone for tuning in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video.